All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Michael Bloxton on the show. And Michael is the founder and CEO of Nebula Space Enterprise. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael Bloxton, he self-made telecom finance real estate investor, is now the founder and CEO of Nebula Space Enterprise, Inc. And he's launched 5 Nebula subsidiaries with a mission to provide humans with access to deep space and infinite resources. And each organization plays a pivotal role in phase 1 of this great plan that seeks to not only help preserve Earth and its precious resources, but propel humanity into a thriving future. So Michael, I cannot wait to dive into what you're doing, your journey and your impact. I can't wait for that. Before we get to that, what's one interesting fact that not many people know about you?
I am robustly positive and optimistic. Someone said in jest, and it stuck for quite some time, that I puke rainbows.
I love that. I puke rainbows.
I was like, that's a really good thing. And I think they meant it negatively, and I took it obviously positively because I puke rainbows.
Very cool. Very cool. And there's something to be said for that, right? Because what we think is how we feel, and our emotions, and how we feel in our emotions is what we do.
Yes.
And we create our future. No, that's fantastic, man. So all right, Michael, tell us tell us about Nebula. Tell us about your companies. What are you doing, man?
So the audience here are fellow CEOs, right? People that are
up and coming leaders and CEOs. Yep.
So from a leadership position, my personal opinion, and we're going to dissect this multiple ways throughout this episode, is vision is required. Vision is, to me, one of the first things you need to identify. We'll talk about how that relates to talent, how that relates to activities and to-dos and priorities. Vision to me is significant, and I didn't have the vision of providing all of humanity access to deep space and infinite resources until I got to a point in my own life where, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I had some success. I had some success that gave me time to think about, what do I actually want to spend the rest of my life doing? Pile that on with having my first son and realizing he deserves a better future than my own, or what I was going to have if I don't actively participate. Those ingredients allowed me to sit and think through, what's the vision that I want to create? And to me, that is why Nebula exists today. And literally, actually, here we go. So here's a book, ABCs of Science, which is clearly for my son and not for me.
Right.
And the N is nebula. And in that, the definition of nebula is where stars are born, is one of the definitions of a nebula. And that's why the company's called Nebula, because the
Interesting.
You're the first time I actually pulled this book out. It's been sitting there forever.
That's cool, man. That's a cool story. Little things like that. It was the end of the book. I was reading it to my son or whatever, and there it was.
Yeah. And I mean, I was at this point where I was thinking about, doing this big thing. No idea how to do it. I don't have nothing you read about my bio has any background. I'm not an aerospace engineer. I don't have any aerospace expertise. I don't even have any deep tech expertise whatsoever. Yet here I am, CEO and founder of all of these companies. And we have world-class people, far smarter than I am that work for us.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you get into this?
When I think about if you're, how do I put this? What I've trained myself to be, I don't know if you've ever seen a piece of trash on the floor, or and this is very much a leadership thing. You've seen a piece of trash on the floor, or you've seen a door or window not closed all the way, or seen, somebody is sitting across you at the restaurant and their jacket falls on the floor. And you hear yourself say, someone should do something about that.
Right.
If you ever hear yourself say, someone should do something about that, you're someone.
You are that something.
Do that thing. Pick up the piece of trash, do the thing. I don't care what your status may be in the world. Do it. Just do it. And I've trained myself with that. So when I sit down and I think about what is the future my son deserves, and what is that experience I want him to have, and then I looked at, well, okay, cool. He should be able to go to Mars, and he should be able to go to the moon. Who's doing that? Well, someone should do something about that. Well, no one was doing something about these particular things, so now we are.
So what is that vision then? Tell us a little bit more about what that really means, this deep space, this concept. What is the vision?
Yeah, so in my opinion, the future my son deserves is the ability for him to have an abundance of whatever it is that he wants, and his entire generation and generations thereafter. And for him to be able to say, I want to go to the moon and live a couple months on the moon doing some stuff, or Mars or deep space. So if that is part of the reality I want to create for him, how do you make that happen? And when you kind of start breaking down the vision of, okay, provide all of humanity access to deep space and infinite resources. To your point, why is that the vision? I believe if you can get all of humanity access to deep space and infinite resources, you can remove a huge majority, like a significant amount, 80 to 90% of the reason we have conflict here on Earth. But not only that, you would be able to support growth unlike anything humanity has ever seen. So the vision is to create that access to those types of resources for all of humanity. And when humans have good resources, especially from energy, or specifically computing and processing, or abundance of water, or abundance of something, we do things with it. And that's just our nature. We imagine new things, we create new things. Does that help dig in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, everybody out there pays attention to, right, Elon Musk and to, Bezos and the race to, that occurred last year, the race to space, right? And Elon Musk's vision of, what was it? He said, I think he said originally by 2023, I'm going to have a small community, or at least we're going to get to Mars, right? To start building this. Like, what's the difference? And nobody really knows, like, not many people know intimately what Elon's doing or what are the other people are doing. What is it that you're doing different that they're doing?
So there's almost, if you have a fingerprint, right? Your fingerprint is unique to you, and all of the experiences that you have, what as a leader or even before you became a leader, contribute to all of this in that fingerprint.
Absolutely.
So the vision in which I have, and part of it was an assessment. To your point, I dove deep into what technologies are available, who's doing what are the opportunities, getting a true assessment, a lay of the land, and then figuring out. Let me take a step back. I started with the vision of provide all of humanity access to deep space and infinite resources. And then how do you do that? I kind of programmatically assessed like all the things that need to be in place. And then when it brought me all the way back to here, who's doing what Bezos and Musk are doing with access to space is absolutely critical.
Right.
I don't need to focus on creating access to immediate space, to low Earth orbit, like getting off of Earth. I don't have to, because they are, right? They're creating, they're the Vanderbilts, right? They're creating the initial railroad to get us there. What do we do once we're there? And then I can think about leveraging that. So that answer the question?
Yeah. So you're talking, when you're talking deep space, then you're talking a whole nother level, right? You're talking beyond what the levels and the heights that they're talking about, right? Because I think a lot of people don't know what deep space really means.
Yeah. So if you're thinking galactically, or
galactically, that just sounds cool when you say that,
right? What the heavy lift, getting off of Earth from an energy perspective, it takes as much energy to go 150 miles straight up as it does to go from there to the moon or to Mars. Definitely to the moon, and I think all the way to Mars. Like the energy equivalent to travel 150 miles versus millions of miles. So if you think about it in solar terms, like a solar system terms, it's the Uber to the airport, right? That's about, and as cool and amazing as the things that they're accomplishing are, it is literally just that first step into space, which is what is so exciting to me personally about what space has to offer and deep space has to offer. I mean, what no one is even contemplating really at this point is how do you genuinely take that flight across the world, which would then be a flight to Mars or a flight to deep space. And it's not like anything we did before. It's more akin to taking a cruise liner from London to New York when steamships were the only mode of operation to cross the seas, right?
Yeah.
It was an experience you had for weeks at a time. So it's really a level setting of what your understandings are and where you want to be. Because again, deep space is very far. Getting an Uber ride, I don't want to take an Uber all the way to London, right?
Sure. Right.
It's going to be really difficult and hard to swim.
Yeah,
that
totally.
far. So that's a little bit of context.
So I know, we're High Performance CEO of the podcast. We're definitely going to get to some good stuff and how you're building out your company. But man, my natural curiosity is just killing me on this. So first of all, is anyone else doing this? Is anyone else taking this to the levels you are?
Not enough. Not enough. Absolutely not enough. One thing people don't realize, and this is, we're literally building an event right now to bring more people into space through Nebula Media. That space, we have like education stuff that's coming out for the broader audience. We have a super exclusive event we're building for executives and people in transition. And the purpose is because not enough people are doing it. And what I don't think people get is the opportunity, the leverage you get from space. Let's use that word, leverage you get from space. I'll give you real examples. So my telecom background, real estate background, Ma Bell built 5 million sticks of wood, telephone poles, to connect the United States. It took them 100 years to build 5 million telephone poles.
Right.
Then in the 80s, you had cell towers. And over 40 plus years, it took that much time to build 500,000 cell towers to connect just the United States. 5 million to 500,000. That's an order of magnitude less infrastructure, but an order of magnitude more capability. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Right now, Starlink is out of SpaceX. They're putting up, and several others, Kuiper, OneWeb, there's a bunch of different companies. They're putting up on the order of 50,000 satellites.
Right, just a ton of them.
So the space industry is like, oh my God, 50,000 satellites. In comparison, there's only been, prior to SpaceX, like 3,000 satellites. So to go to 50,000 is understandably a holy crap moment, but
it's a disruptor,
huge disruptor. But think about what I just said. 5 million telephone poles, 500,000 cell towers, 50,000 satellites. That is a 100x decrease. Here's the most significant thing: that 50,000 satellites is the whole world, not just the United States. So it's not just 100 times better, it's 1,000 times better. And they're doing it for a few billion, single-digit billion dollars, and in a decade, because they're leveraging space. I don't think a lot of people comprehend how going to space allows you to leverage your impacts globally more than anything else I'm aware of. I'm obviously biased, but I actively searched for ways to leverage and make impact. And this was the thing I came back with. Space is that. We don't have enough people that realize that. We don't have enough people working on these problems. Doesn't matter if it's water, if it's food, if it's health, you can do it better by leveraging space.
Wow. So I love the vision, right? For providing humans with access to deep space and infinite resources. What are some of when you think about this vision, are there any other tangibles that go along with it, Michael? Like any milestones, or when this is complete 10 years from now or 20 years from now, this is what's going to be in place, right? Anything that,
I mean, what we're doing, the first company we started was taking terrestrial grade computing hardware and putting that in space. Space is not kind to electronics, like at all. Radiation kills it. Thermal, it's ovens, really difficult. So that's the first thing. It's like we tackled that because, in my opinion, I have some frameworks. Energy is the wave that rises all boats. You could have you could have the coolest, best technology in the middle of anywhere, the best hospital, all that stuff. If it doesn't have power, it's a bunch of metal and plastic, and it's useless.
Totally.
The power is the first thing, but when I assessed where space was at, there's a lot of really cool tech happening in Gen 1 and Gen 2 for nuclear technology in space, for solar technology in space. Just like when we talk about Musk, he's creating access. I don't need to focus on that. So we focused on what I think is the next big leverage opportunity, which is computing, processing. There isn't an industry on the planet today that isn't accelerated because it has processing like AI, machine learning, or things like that, and communication capability. So looking at that, then I go back to space. All right, what's happening in space? it's the butt of a joke if you think about computing and comms in space today.
Sure.
So that's why we started assessing that problem. Here's a massive leverage opportunity with space and computing, and no one was doing it. So that's the first company we started. And we're actually launching on the ISS, proving out the IP today with cutting edge servers from the ground, popping them into our box and putting it up there. So when you look at solving that problem, once you have the hardware, directly to your question, once you have the hardware, the next question is, well, what would you do with that type of hardware? And a conversation I just had, it's like, imagine having a bunch of apps, but you don't have an iPhone, right? You have the ability, like for instance, we had music apps. There were apps on like the Palm Pilot, and some people may remember these things. You had these apps, but they were clunky and they were difficult. And it wasn't until the iPhone brought a platform together in which you could have convenience for those things. So space and a lot of things in space are at the stage where there are consistent cool tech, but it's difficult to access.
They're kind of fragmented.
They're fragmented, and they were mission built. So I built an app to do this one thing, and all the things that allow that app to run wouldn't let you run anything else. So it's not a platform, it's very mission specific. So, if you're trying to, I just got off the phone with somebody who's very deep into, solving wildfires. Cause in California alone, $5 billion of property damage, like in 2021.
It's insane, right?
One year, one state, $5 billion of property damage. And no one's really addressing the problem. Addressing the problem, like most, becomes highly leveraged by going to space. You can do it in a different way. But what you have to do, because the way space is built and space infrastructure is built, you have to build everything all at once. So the way you and I are communicating right now, I didn't build a power station. I didn't build a data center. I didn't build a cell tower, the fiber optic cable to then have this conversation. All of that infrastructure exists. That platform exists. The iPhone, so to speak, existed.
Right.
So when I think about the vision of space, is like we're at the stage now, which is a huge opportunity for most people, where you can start creating those platforms and you can start pulling some of this infrastructure together that allows you not to do the one specific thing, but to do that among many, many others. So when you talk about milestones, everything we're doing is circular. The event that I talked about, the media, and bringing more people into the industry, we've got these other companies. All of these things come back and support what we're working on.
Awesome. And I want to reiterate and just kind of bring back the thing that you started with was, look, you have to start with a vision. And the fact that you have no background in this, absolutely none. You're not an engineer. You didn't have any background in this, telecom, real estate, that's your background, finance. And you're like, dude, this is not working. I want a better life for my child, and I'm going to create it. That is insane, dude.
It sounds glorious that I had a finance background. I didn't even have that. What I really had was passion and an ability to learn and figure it out. That was it. That's all I brought to the table. And for all the leaders out there, that's actually all you need. And you got to keep driving it down. One quote that has helped me tremendously is an Einstein quote, which is provide all of, that was me. To live the life.
Oh, that was my quote.
My bad. Einstein said, the life you live is determined by the quality of life you live is determined by the quality of questions you ask. And then he had another quote: if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking of the right question to ask, right? So if you're out there, just ask good questions and then ask better questions. And if you get a good answer, learn from that, incorporate that, ask a better question. And that is literally the path I've been on for years, to find these world-class people and asking better questions and around that vision. How do you accomplish that vision?
So you started with the vision, and that has been what's key to really allowed you to attract the top talent. Is that kind of alluding to what that? Okay.
Everybody wants to be a part of something. Big.
Yeah. Well, geez, I think there was a statistic. It was like just here last year, like 88% of millennials want to work for a company that is involved in solving one of the major problems of the human race. So yeah, I mean, you're solving, hey, this is the deep seated, deep rooted. It doesn't get any more, I want you to say existential than this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very cool, man. Awesome. So you said the next milestone for your company, you said the payload launched off the ISS this year. I know you kind of just touched on it a little bit. Tell us more about that. What's going on with that project?
So we'll be launching launch is scheduled for October this year, and that's kind of the first piece. And then it's again going back to leadership. It's all about not just your team. So I started all this with advisors.
Yeah.
Advisors is a relatively low ask for a young leader,
Okay.
or an aspiring leader. An advisor is someone who isn't committing almost anything substantial to you. And what I found is most people that have success are happy, like genuinely happy and fulfilled by sharing lessons that they have.
Okay.
So I was able to get to a world-class team of people that I still to this day pinch myself that these guys even listened to me,
Wow.
or gave me the time of day. But I also believe that the answer is always no if you never ask. So I'm always willing to ask.
There it is. Love that quote.
So the advisor is where I started. One of my advisors is now my co-founder. So he started as an advisor, then became an executive, and now he's a co-founder.
Oh, cool.
And then other advisors have helped in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So if you bring down like your advisor team was an easy one, a low ask. The executives are a bigger ask, right? You're asking them to trade a lot more time to jump on your vision. So
Sure.
your vision better be big and probably bigger than theirs.
Yeah.
Then when you asked me about Nebula Compute in this company and what we're doing with the ISS, you got to start now branching it out to who are the partners that we can bring in, and how does this technology accelerate all national security? How does it accelerate a big global company? How do we make them look good as well? So this is, it's not all, it may sound like Nebula is the center of the universe, but at the end of the day, we know that we're nuts, right? We may be a center of the universe, but we're there to support our advisors, our executives, our customers, our partners, and we want everyone to benefit as we go on this path.
Oh, very cool, man. Very cool. Awesome. So a question I always like to ask is if you were going to hire a CEO to take the reins for your company, what's the one book that you'd require he or she read before taking over for you?
The recommendation I have is extremely specific to me and our vision. And that book was a recently published book by Daniel Suarez called Critical Mass.
Okay.
And it holds a vision for the future that I think is close to what we're working on accomplishing. I actually had a lot of input to that in many conversations with Dan about it. And the reason I say that is because, I think a CEO versus a COO or a president, a CEO is meant to carry the vision. They're meant to look 6 months and beyond and really figure out who should we be playing, how is the field responding, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're flying high, absolutely.
So the vision is the first thing. I mean, you need to, if you're all about, you need if you and I live because we have blood running through our veins, revenue and profit are the blood for a business. So you can't do one without the other.
Absolutely.
But I feel vision is the first thing. And once you have vision, it's the ultimate filter, ultimately.
I'm still grasping the fact that you had nothing to do with this industry and this is what you're doing, because I think this is such an anomaly, right? Everybody does what they're related to, or they grew up in plumbing, right? I'm going to become a plumber, and then I own a plumbing company. And the fact that you did this is so courageous, dude. I'm not like trying to pump sunshine up your ass or anything. I just think it's like, dude, I'm commending you because it's just brother to brother. It's freaking awesome. And absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. I'd like to take just a few seconds and kind of summarize some of my key takeaways. Number one, this vision thing. Like, I consult businesses all the time, and we always talk about vision. Where do you want to be and how important it is? But I can honestly say I've not talked to somebody where it is really paved the way for the company. Usually vision is something where people, they have a business, they're successful, they're going, and then they get to 100, 150, 200 people, and they're kind of they're kind of divided. they're not aligned, right? And then we have to kind of back up and create that vision. You started from the beginning with this grandeur vision, excuse me, and that has paved the way for you to then, using that vision, you created your advisory board. And I have no doubt. I mean, it sounds like you brought in some real top guns in the industry.
Well, I see your naval background, so you'll appreciate the fact that, you know, one of my advisors is an amazing 3-star general, and
Nice.
out of 1.5 million military personnel at any given time, only about 130 in the entire military make it to 3-star general or actively 3-star general. That is quantifiably the top 1% of the top 1%. The fact that these people listen to me and are willing to support me is amazing. And we've got astronauts, we've got 3-star general, we've got former chief scientists of the ISS National Lab, International Space Station National Lab, active chief scientists of publicly traded space companies. I mean, it's insane when you think about some of the people that support us. So yes, world-class for sure.
Very cool. And I have actually one of my fraternity brothers was on ISS in 2013. So if you want another guy, I'd love to refer you. He's awesome. He was an F-14 pilot and then got picked up for that. So so another couple takeaways. The answer is always no if you don't ask. I wanted to capture that and throw it out there. So you built this advisory board and you brought on top people, and then from there you built your executive and world-class people. You surrounded yourself with people that are the experts, even though you're not the expert. It's all about, really, there's a book out there. It's called Who, Not How, right? Because that's conventionally, he's got it right there. I love it.
I do have that book here.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. And that was a big change for me too, because my whole life I'm a nuclear engineer. I'll figure it out myself, you know. And then once you realize you're the epitome of who, not how. And man, it was a pleasure having you on the show. There's so much to be learned from what you've shared with us and what you're doing. Let me ask you, Michael, if there was one takeaway that you would really want the audience to absorb, what would that be, man?
If you and I, if you and I and the listeners close our eyes and we think ourselves across the world, wherever that may be for you. You know, if you think yourself across the world, whether across the world is a jungle or a sandy beach or whatever, or then now take a step back. Now think yourself across the room, across your room right now, the chair, whatever that may be. The amount of energy it took you to think yourself across the world is the same amount of energy it took for you to think yourself across the room. Yeah. And that's what I think is missing. And when I talk about this huge vision, I just spent more time thinking about going across the world, going exponential versus going incremental. And the one takeaway,
brother,
to your point about these companies you consult, you know, they're looking at incremental approaches. That's one of the problems with space industry in general, is it's incremental. What I need to prove everything first before I can go further. And going leaps and bounds is difficult from some people's perspective. But if you start with the energy, the thinking behind it, it isn't. It is literally not harder to think yourself across the world as it is to think yourself across the room. Yeah. So that would be the takeaway. Think yourself across the solar system. Yeah, man. That's very powerful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Michael, if any of our listeners want to reach out and get a hold of you, perhaps join your team, become somehow part of your vision and mission, or just have questions for leadership from the show today, how could they do that? So for consuming content, I would go to nebulamedia.space. We've got a ton of great content already there and more coming. Again, trying to arm the world with what they need to get active in space. To learn more about our companies, you can go to nebulaincorporated.com. That'll have the general company and all the other companies underneath of it. If you're an executive looking to transition into space, you can go to spaceleaderssummit.com. And then for me personally, go to michaelbloxton.com. And it's awesome. All of those things exist because of the team. Going back to the point about I'm not the one that's capable of executing and building websites and stuff like that. Having the team that's inspired and capable, it's because of that vision that I have these amazing people, specifically Ashley, who I know is listening here. Yes, awesome. Michael, again, thanks for being on the show, man. Very inspirational, and you really have reset the stage for the importance of vision and how critical that is to you know, just don't limit yourself. Don't be incremental.
go for the gold, man. And that, so thank you for that. That was fantastic. For the audience, please hit the like and subscribe button. Help us spread the word about what we're doing here, how we're helping the next generation of our leaders and managers and CEOs do that much better of a job and be that much more successful out there. With that, again, thanks, Michael, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
Absolutely.